What up, everybody? The Gangs of London Season 3 finale starts off giving us more details into the night 7 years prior to the current timeline when Elliot Carter's wife, Naomi, and son Samuel were killed. As we learned, there was a second man on the scene that night, as Zeke was who ultimately drove the truck into Elliot's wife's car, but there was another man on the scene that night whose face they didn't show at the beginning of the episode, who went and took the paperwork that she had recently obtained from the car, who also had the opportunity to rescue Elliot's wife and son, but didn't. And we learned at the conclusion of this episode that the person who got the paperwork off of Elliot's wife and walked away instead of saving them was none other than Billy Wallace, sent by his father to get this information to try to stop the legalization of drugs in London. So the episode concluded with Billy meeting up with Elliot after he was told by his mother, Miriam, that he needed to eliminate Elliot. But instead, Billy got high and had a drink and confessed to Elliot something that had been a weight on him for all those years, that he had a chance to save Elliot's wife and son, but instead he let them burn. And even though they didn't show it, the episode concluded with multiple gunshots, and we can assume this was Elliot taking out Billy for his part in Elliot's wife and son's death. So we saw the death of the Wallace brothers, Billy and Sean, in Season 3, even though it was revealed that they have another brother last episode, Zeke, after it was revealed last episode that he was also the son of Finn Wallace. But after the scene where Elliot's wife and son were killed, still at the point on the timeline from 7 years ago, we were introduced to a new character, Isabel Vaughn, as Henry Mill and another woman went to tell her about the death of Elliot's wife and child. Isabel Vaughn was in Myanmar, Southeast Asia, testing the purity of her product at the time, as she's the leader of the group of investors called the Vaughn Alliance, the main group behind the push for the legalization of drugs in London, as the Vaughn Alliance plans to be who gets the drug production licenses, something that will be key for distributors once drugs are legalized in London. Isabel Vaughn was above both Ed Damani and Asif, and was who actually called the shot to have the coke spiked that killed over 600 people in order to move forward the plan to legalize drugs in London. So after the flashback scene from 7 years ago, on the current timeline, the episode starts off soon after the last episode ended, with Ed Damani now being beat after it was exposed last episode that he was who made the call to have Sean Wallace killed. Elliot, Miriam Wallace, Luan, and their soldiers were beating Ed, trying to get the information out of him about who was calling the shots, threatening his family, Shannon and Danny, if he didn't tell them. So after getting Miriam and Luan's word that they would leave his family alone, Ed told them how Isabel Vaughn was who was calling the shots, and how he was supposed to be attending a meeting that she was hosting later that day. So Elliot and Billy used Ed's invitation and showed up, interrupting the meeting. So Isabel took Elliot and Billy to her office to talk, where a fight broke out that resulted in the death of Henry Mill and several of Vaughn's security guards, as well as Vaughn getting shot in the shoulder. But as Elliot was about to kill Isabel Vaughn, she revealed to him that his wife was actually working for her and agreed with her effort to legalize drugs in London, and that it was Billy's father, Finn Wallace, who was behind Naomi and Elliot's son's deaths. So Elliot left to look for answers, vowing to kill whoever was lying between Isabel and Billy. And after going back through Naomi's old paperwork, Elliot found the paperwork from the Vaughn Alliance group, where Naomi drew up the framework for the legalization of drugs in London. And let me stop and say this for a minute. Now that Elliot knows the truth about what happened to his wife and son, at some point he has to realize that what happened to his son is completely on his wife, because she shouldn't have had their son with her while she was doing her dirt and meeting up with her informant. But after finding his wife's paperwork, Elliot then took it to the mayor so she could use it in her plans to legalize drugs in London and put an end to the gangs, something that the mayor was now thinking about backing down from. But Elliot told her not to compromise like he has and to stand up for what she believes in. After Ed Damani told everybody the truth and they were supposed to leave Shannon and Danny alone, they went after them anyway, and at this point when they were trying to get away, Danny shot one of Lewin's men, just like his grandpa taught him last episode not to hesitate. And Shannon took out one of his men as well, and they might even have been able to escape before Cornelius walked up behind Danny. But when they got to Lewin's house, his wife didn't want him to take out Shannon and Danny, and Lewin ultimately let them go. But Ed Damani wouldn't have the same luck as his daughter and grandson, as he was left with Miriam trying to convince her to let him go, but ultimately ended up telling her that she's cold and no one ever loved her, as Miriam killed Ed. But not before Ed revealed to Miriam that it was Zeke who pulled the trigger to take out Sean, as well as who Zeke's mother is. So this will be a storyline that will likely continue into season 4, and Miriam is now left with no more sons after the deaths of Billy and Sean, and her daughter wants nothing to do with her. So her only family in her life now is Cornelius. And when Cornelius was with Ed, Ed revealed that back in the day it was his sister Miriam who agreed with him to exile him and not Finn. So that could have been foreshadowing tension between Miriam and Cornelius in season 4. Then at the conclusion of the episode, as Billy was confessing to Elliot, the mayor was making her speech about the plan to legalize drugs in London and put an end to the gangs once and for all. And watching this speech and the mayor vowing to take the illegal drug trade out of the hands of gangsters, we see all the gangsters watching on. Cornelius listened from his car, Shannon and Danny listening in their car, potentially leaving London after the death of Ed, Luan watching with his family, Lele, her son and her crew watching, as that was the only time we saw Lele this episode, as well as Miriam Wallace watching by herself, as the mayor said, "Your days of terrorizing this city are numbered." And it also showed Zeke at this point at the airport where it said departures. So Zeke could also be leaving London as well. And something I noticed that was on the screen when the mayor was giving her speech is at the bottom of the caption it read, "Energy Secretary says that the country could face blackouts within months." I'm not sure what that was all about, but in addition to one of the main storylines in season 5 being the mayor moving forward with her effort to legalize drugs, as this is something that won't be immediate because Henry said in the meeting with the investors it would take 18 months to implement. But another storyline could be these blackouts that was mentioned in the caption during the mayor's speech. And if there is blackouts, we got to believe that's something that the gangs can use in their favor to try to stop the legalization of drugs in London. And there you have it. Leave your thoughts, theories, and predictions in the comments.